The seven habits of highly effective daters based on what Stephen Covey might say if he were a dating coach. Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. Once again, I'm so happy to welcome back Sandy Weiner, the dating coach, relationship expert, founder of Last First Date, and the author of Choice Points in Dating. Sandy, thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me again.
Sandy, I'm excited about our topic today. This is something that you came up with that I thought was so clever, and that is the seven habits of highly effective daters based on what Stephen Covey might say if he were a dating coach.
I've always liked the seven habits. I think they're brilliant. Every single one of them can be applied to dating. And I had never seen anything like this before. And so I wrote an article, did a video about it, and we're going to talk about it.
Well, if anybody doesn't know who Stephen Covey is, of course, he was, especially when we were like in our heyday, career building days, when he came out with the seven habits of highly effective people and had these seven habits that people follow to improve their personal and professional effectiveness. So let's get to number one. Number one, be proactive. And as we would, or he might say in dating, own your love life.
Yeah, a lot of us are victims of our past. So we blame our parents' marriage as not being a good guide for us. How else could we be in relationship? Or our city has a very terrible dating pool, or the apps stink. And we can blame lots of things, or we can take full ownership of our love life and be proactive. And that is, we don't just wait for the person to land on our doorstep, or we go on a dating app and we wait for somebody to show up and pick us. It's about us being intentional with our choices and taking action. So no matter how you grew up, no matter what your past has been, you can create the relationship that you want. And it all begins with you and your attitude and your ability to take charge of your love life.
And that is so important. That it's up to us to make stuff happen. Number two here, begin with the end in mind. Know what you're looking for.
Yeah. So having a vision is really important, knowing what you want. I mean, I see so many people go out and date and they want a serious relationship, but they're afraid to say it, or they don't even know what it looks like to have the relationship that they want. So if you want just a companion, then look for a companion. If you want somebody with shared values, which I hope everybody wants, then look for that. But at different stages of your life, you might be looking for different things. So know what the end looks like for you. Be very specific about what that looks like. If you know where you're going, it's a lot easier to get there.
We hear a lot about, the whole manifesting. I don't think Stephen Covey ever used that word. Maybe he did. But when I think about it, when I do have something in mind, or when I did, without even necessarily doing it consciously, those things tended to happen.
I want to say one more thing about the end in
Sure.
mind, because I think a lot of people have such specific ideas about what the end looks like that they don't even recognize the person when they show up, because they thought they were going to look a certain way and they were going to meet in a certain way. But maybe you're going to meet that person on an airplane or a bus or while you're out for your morning walk, because you know the feeling you want to have when you're with this person. That's the most important thing. So you're getting to know a person, you'll recognize it when it shows up, rather than missing it because you're looking for something that you think is what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Number three, put first things first. That was big with Stephen Covey. Focus on what really matters, perhaps, in dating.
Yeah, a lot of people say, oh, I really want to find a relationship, but they don't prioritize it. It's the bottom of the list because it's very vulnerable to put yourself out there. So if you want to be honest with yourself, if you really want a relationship, you have to sign up for social events. You have to get on some apps. You have to prioritize meeting somebody in your life. So many people say, oh, it's going to happen when you're not looking. I don't agree with that. I think it doesn't happen when you're pushing for it and going on a million dates without any clear intention. But prioritize your love life and make space for it in your life.
And that another great point, because yeah, people do say that. I think what's really important about that, to further clarify perhaps, is that I think when you say it's going to happen when it happens, it can be, it's sabotaging, or it's a block that you're putting up, because that way you don't have to go out and do anything.
No, you wouldn't do that with a job. I want to write a book. Well, it'll happen when it happens. No, you actually got to take some steps to make it happen. And, that's true for anything important in your life. So make it a priority in your love life.
Okay, number 4 here, another good one. Think win-win, and perhaps the way it applies to dating is that healthy relationships have no losers. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, he might say that.
So, there's a couple ways to look at this, and healthy relationships have no losers. So when you're in a relationship, one person's not winning and the other person's losing. But and another way to look at this is that if a person found a partner, it doesn't mean there's one less for you. I think a lot of people look at life and love with a scarcity mindset. And so you have jealousy, you have comparison, you're leading with fear. There are plenty of good people. I mean, I hear from clients all the time when they get frustrated. Do people really find love at this stage in life? And do people really find love online? And yes, they do. And so just because one person finds it, it's not a loss to you. It's actually proof that you can have it too.
What's also interesting about that is when you really want something and it doesn't look like, maybe you've lost hope, or it just doesn't feel like it's ever going to happen, how quickly that can turn around. And that's for me like one of the hardest things to tell people, not just about finding love, but like my nephew, he was in, he had been laid off and was really struggling to find another job in an industry that, that was tapering down, shall we say. And just to tell him that, it's going to be okay, or it will happen, that while you're in that moment, it may seem impossible, but all of a sudden it changes. And that actually is the reality if you keep a positive attitude and keep your eyes open.
Yeah, and it just takes one. And if you're being discerning in your love life and not just settling into relationships with people who are not a good fit, it will take a longer time, most probably. So having patience, seeing the long game, but also knowing that if other people your age go online and find love, then you can too.
Number 5 here, seek first to understand, then to be understood, or listen to connect. Another great point.
Yeah, we often listen so that we can now have our turn. We don't even really reflect. I mean, I remember being interviewed by somebody a while ago, and she would listen to my answers and she'd go, okay, and then move on to the next one. I don't even know if she said okay half the time. She'd go, and here's another question. So that happens in dating a lot. We're not really listening. We're not giving empathy. We're not patient. We are not reflective. And when we do those things, when we can really see somebody and try to understand rather than judge them, so much opens up in your love life. And so get to know who somebody is and not who you assume they might be. Often there are complete surprises when you actually tune in to who they are, not who you think they are.
I guess you and I are both in the interview business, so to speak, largely anyway. I am solely. And to me, it's just fascinating to listen. I mean, you learn so much. And it always surprises me when people just talk, 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 or change. If somebody brings something up, oh, I have a dog. When see a picture of my dog. Oh, I have a dog. Right away turn everything around. But when you actually listen to what they have to say, you'd be surprised what they reveal and how that hopefully will bring you closer and connect. So my little diatribe on that
Yeah.
one.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I've been doing a podcast for almost 13 years now, and I learned so much from each interview when I listen, when I then think of another follow-up question and they get excited. And both of us are energized at the end of the conversation because there's a lot of listening and sharing and stories and the things that make people want to listen to our conversation. But if I just listen to somebody and then judge them or immediately went to the next question without really reflecting, it would be a terrible interview.
Yeah, it's not interesting because
Yeah.
the audience, the viewer, they want to maybe hear more. If you anyway, that the talking interview strategy now, which is not what our intent here is, but it is to listen. Here, synergize or build something better together. Synergize was a big buzzword back then.
Yeah, so great relationships are not about being the exact same. So many people say, I want a clone of who I am. That usually does not work out. First of all, you'd be bored. There's nothing interesting about the other person and what they can bring to the table. So it's about a complement. And that's what synergy is. You both bring your full self to the table. And they say one plus one does not equal two, it equals three.
Mhm.
And that means that the synergy of what each of you contribute can create something that neither of you could have built alone. And I have seen that so many times in relationships where the two of them together are building something really special that did not happen in previous relationships. And so that's what synergy is. You don't want your clone, you want somebody who has something you don't have or is going to bring something else to the table, but both of you show up fully.
I think that was a big team building thing back then. I think he started a lot of that because we were so focused on like individual success, individual production, that the team building, I think that it really came into being then, and that absolutely applies to relationships. Yeah, we're building a team, synergize. So yeah, another really good point to ponder. Number seven, then finally, sharpen the saw or keep growing and recharging.
Yeah, that's the key to a successful relationship, in my opinion, is that both of you are always growing. That you don't say, well, this is just who I am, and then that's it, the end of the
Mhm.
conversation, but that you have hard conversations. Two people are constantly evolving and supporting one another's growth. So it's not about finding the right person, it's about being the right person by your emotional, mental, spiritual growth.
When I was looking at that, sharpen the saw, I'm thinking, why did he call it that? I honestly can't. What do you think sharpen the saw meant back then?
Well, I mean, from just my thoughts are the saw gets dull if you don't keep it sharp. And so, in order to have a successful relationship, you need to have sharpening, you have to have nurturing. And I think that's otherwise, you're trying to cut things with a dull saw. So, your tools need to be sharp and you need to be sharp.
You're so much deeper than I am, Sandy. You got that, right? I am. I'm reading that sharpen the saw. Okay. I mean, the point made sense, but sharpen the saw. Why would he call? Anyway, now I get it. Well, and then you have a bonus habit, and I actually do too. What is the bonus habit that you would throw in there?
So the bonus habit is from effectiveness to greatness, which is kind of piggybacking on what we just said about sharpening the saw. It's you found a great relationship. How do you keep the fire burning? How do you nurture that relationship?
Mhm.
So you go beyond, okay, a lot of times people say, okay, we got married and now we don't have to do anything. Or we live together. Now we're
We can let
done.
ourselves go.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to do anything to keep it working. And this is about from surviving together to thriving together, from ordinary to extraordinary. It's about dreaming together. I have this couple who I was working with, and they just got engaged, and they have dreams about their lives together. They have been so intentional about how to support both of them separately and together. And I think that's what makes for a great relationship.
That is beautiful. Yes, and I agree. And here, this is kind of more of a fun one, I think, but bonus habit, don't ghost. He wouldn't say that back then, but today he might. Communicate with class or treat others how you'd want to be treated. even if you're not into them. That absolutely, I think, applies to today's dating scene. This was fun. I've always was a big Stephen Covey fan. Still have the book sitting up there, and yeah, just the practical stuff that you just want to look back on, which just makes so much sense. Sandy, is there anything else you want to add on this topic before we end?
I just think that it's always a good idea to be in process for yourself and for your future partner or the partner you have. That if you're always looking to grow and looking to take responsibility for what you're putting out there, you're going to show up as the highest version of yourself, as yourself with a capital S, as opposed to that reactive, hurt, wounded parts of you that never got healed. And so I just believe in doing the work. It's so important. And when you do it, you also, when you show up as your highest self, you're going to attract your best partner because they'll see who you fully are, not this hidden fake version of you. So this work is just essential.
Absolutely. And I know that a lot of our viewers will agree with you. So thank you for that. Sandy, thank you again for your time. Always appreciate it. If you need some help in this dating world, do give Sandy a call. We have all of her information in the show notes below. And of course, pick up her book, Choice Points in Dating. Lots of practical information of how to find that person that your last first date. And don't forget to check out the website, Second Act TV. Sandy, thank you. Cheers. We'll see you next time on Second Act TV. Bye bye.